I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Hey everybody, it's Loren. Welcome back to another episode of World on Fire, the after show here at AfterBuzz TV. We're going to talk about episode 7. I am not doing this alone. I am here with my period piece lover, Toree Weaver. How are you?
I'm good. I'm super excited that we've made it to the season finale. I think this is a great episode. And when I was watching it, I was like, oh, this is going to make for a great conversation with Loren. So I was just looking forward to coming to this panel today and really diving into what happened.
Yeah, we've got some things to talk about. We've got Harry getting close to the war front and Lois getting close to Vernon. We have Rubina trying to be a mother and Douglas trying to be a friend. Oh boy, that when he kind of just says "ruh," that really got me. And then Schmidt, Nancy's minder, gets real close to her, and then she gets real honest with her nephew. So let's start with Nancy. We learned a huge thing about Nancy. We've always known her to be very strong-willed, speaks her mind. Kind of at the beginning, I admit that I thought that the Americans in the show always kind of carried a bravado, like look at us. But we kind of learned about Nancy when her minder Schmidt put his hand on her hand at the fancy restaurant and said, basically, if you'll sleep with me, I'll help out your friend Albert. What did you think of that whole scene at the restaurant?
It was just very uncomfortable to watch. But again, like a lot of these things that have happened in the show, it wasn't completely out of the blue. It wasn't just random, or I didn't think that it was possible of happening. Of course, we've grown to love Nancy over the series, even though at the beginning, we were like, Nancy, just be quiet. But it was just uncomfortable and unfortunate that she had to be in that situation. I mean, Nancy has only proved throughout this whole series that all she wants is the truth. All she wants to do is help and do what's right. And to have someone kind of just dangle that in front of her face in exchange for sexual activity was just kind of like, we've seen this over and over again. And then when she finally talked to her nephew about it and just kind of shared her personal experience, it just gave us a little bit a closer look to Nancy. I think that we've seen her on a very black and white level of just like being a reporter. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, this is the first episode that we found out that she had a son as well.
Yes.
So it was just really nice to see more about this character that we've all fallen in love with. And I think we can see why she's so connected to these causes.
Yeah, very well put. It was interesting how her nephew goes in for a hug and she's basically like, that's not who I am. I never was. I never will be. But he kind of knew that. So yeah, really interesting with Nancy. And I'm curious to see, assuming she goes back to Berlin, this is still before, long before America gets into the war. So there's no reason for Germany to hold on to Americans, because at this point they're invading Europe and they want the world to know they're doing it for good reasons. Let's move on to Harry, who gets this mission. He enters a special service where his job is to go into Poland to drop off some supplies and also to pick up some people. But before he does that, he's told to make the rounds. So he visits Lois and made a will for her. What did you think about that scene where Lois and Harry are talking and he mentions to her that he made a will, not for her, but for the baby?
Yeah. Honestly, I feel like this whole situation regarding the child, I have been more on Harry's side, even though I don't appreciate the fact that he's married and didn't tell Lewis before they had sex and produced a child. I can see that he's at least trying. And a part of me was just kind of like, Lewis, I know that you don't want to, be dependent on a man and you want to do this on your own. And I completely understand that, especially given the way that Harry handled the situation. But it kind of made me feel bad that she literally wants nothing to do with him, doesn't want him in the child's life. And every effort that he makes to try to provide for the child in some way, she's kind of shot down, even when it comes to a will, which would involve him not being around anymore anyway. And so that kind of made me feel for Harry in a little bit, because he is trying to be a part of his child's life. But then in a split second when he says, you know, because you're not my wife. I was kind of like, Harry, we know that. We know that you're married to someone else. You don't have to rub it in. Like, I just feel like every time he tries and every time Lois is kind of like giving him an inch, he says something to screw it up. And I feel like that was that one instance when he said something to screw it up. And I was just like, this is not, we're not going to recover at this point. Like that kind of just felt like it was his last chance and he blew it.
Right. And even Lois's father told Harry that he screwed up and you keep getting it wrong. And Harry was like, what can I do? He's like, you live with it and you deal with it. And so, yeah, Harry can't seem to do right. You know, Lois's brother, Tom, who we don't know what happened to him, always seemed to be the F up in the family or in this whole series. But even Harry, we're seeing, really doesn't have it together personally, but the war changes him. At least we see him out on the field when he lands in Poland and sees those two Nazis and kills them point blank range. So what a change for Harry at all. But what really struck me was his conversation with his mother and his mother, Robina's slow evolution to learning how to love. And I, you know, they got into an argument and I'm looking in my notes to see, he gets into an argument with his mother and says, since when did you grow a heart? And I was like, damn.
Yeah, it was. I think we were all waiting for that argument to happen, though. I mean, we don't really know the ins and outs of that relationship, but we know that it's not a good one. Like, we know that it's not a nurturing one, a motherly one. Like, it is none of those things. And so I knew that at some point, especially with Harry having a child of his own, that it was going to come out because Rubina has been so concerned with like appearance and how this is going to look and just kind of like trying to almost forget that the child is coming and then is there. And so I think it was just like that pulling, it was going to happen. Like, I just think that it was going to happen. And I think Robina, like you said, had a very slow realization that this upkeep with appearance was only to make herself feel better because she couldn't handle what was going on. And that doesn't mean that everybody else shouldn't have the freedom to handle things the way that they want to, just because she can't be strong enough to face people who might have a differing opinion. So I was like, well, did he lie? No. So I enjoyed watching it, and I also think it was very necessary. And I liked how she started to change after that.
Yeah, when Robina, when Harry puts his hand on his mother's hand, and then she's like, says out loud, "I don't know what to do with this. I don't know how to respond." Part of me was like, okay, stop playing it up. But the other part of me was, she really doesn't know how to care. And we learn it's because she never forgave her husband for leaving her, which meaning he comes back from World War I and has PTSD and kills himself. Harry understands, being in the service, how this could happen, but she just could not forgive him. And so sadly, we learn part of what makes Robina hold love at such a distance from her heart. We can see little bits of it here and there later on throughout the season. So let's talk about Kasia. We get to see Kasia. She's still in Poland with Tomasz, picking out Nazis to kill. They get caught. They're about to be hung. And then there's the explosion. And Kasia leaves, not before seeing Tomasz hung with a chest that says Jew and traitor. So, when she meets up with Harry at the end at that farm, she's telling him, I am not the same person you knew before.
Yeah.
So that's shocking because Harry, I think he's lost his mom, the relationship with his mom, lost the relationship with Lois, basically told by the father of his, the baby's mama, that he doesn't want to really deal with it. So he has nobody. He thinks Kasia is all he has. And then basically she's like, I am not who I was before.
Yeah. Okay, this was very interesting. And at first, honestly, I had to kind of go back a little bit and make sure that it was her partner that was hung. Because at first, I just thought that it was a random person, but then I caught a glimpse of the face and I was like, geez, like this
Yeah.
is about to happen. And honestly, I thought that it was over for her. Like, I really did. Just because this show has a very realistic approach to things, I feel like. And so I wouldn't have been surprised if Kasia died in this episode. I was kind of like, okay, it's coming. Like, I'm preparing myself. So I was really surprised the explosion happened and was used as kind of like a distraction to get her out of there. It wasn't something that I was expecting, but I was glad that she was able to get out. And then, yeah, like you said, when she met up with Harry at the farm, I kind of knew that she was going to have this conversation because she's not the same girl. I mean, the minute that Harry left with Yan, she became a totally different person.
Hmm.
And not in a bad way, but she did things in order to survive. And that's not really the girl that Harry grew to know and love. But I feel like Harry is also not the same person. And this was Harry's opportunity to actually have an honest conversation and be upfront about the things that have happened. I mean, he's not the same person because he was in the war, so he has stuff like that going on. He is in love with Lois still. He has a child with Lois now. Like, and he just refused to say any of that information and just was kind of like, it's okay that you're not the same person. Instead of saying, we're both different people, we've both gone through our experiences, and maybe we can find a way to still continue this journey together. Instead, he just, listen problems or whatever. And I was like, Harry, have you learned nothing from
Yeah.
from not telling the truth? And I was just like, what the heck? But they don't really have much time to really decide what they're going to do, if they're going to stay married, if whatever, because of the situation that they're in. But being that this is a season finale, I'm definitely going to tune in and see what happens after this, because I don't know if they were still going to be together.
Yeah, but did you notice when they both escape and before they completely split off, she looks back, kills somebody point blank range, and then he kind of looks at her like, "Who is this?"
Yes, I did notice that, and that's why I was like, okay, maybe they won't stay together. Because honestly, when Kasia was explaining to him that I've done things, I've killed people, I'm not the same person. To me, it kind of felt like Harry didn't give it that much weight. Like, he was just kind of like, we've all done things to survive. Like, nobody's perfect. We're in the middle of a war. Da, 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 da. But I think that when he saw her kill the person in point blank range, she was kind of like, wait, what? I think he kind of looked back and kind of was like, wait, what has she done?
Yeah.
Like, maybe she is a completely different person, because she didn't tell him exactly what she was doing. And because granted, they didn't have time. So I think, like you said, that moment, I definitely caught on to that as well, because I think he's starting to realize that when she said she's a completely different person, that's exactly what she meant.
Yeah. And so, even if they don't continue in subsequent seasons, they're still tied together because Jan has grown to really love Harry. And so that'll be interesting what happens there. The thing that I'm really curious about, we end with both Kasia and Harry splitting up. She's out of breath and she sees a man up at the top of the hill. Do you have any idea who the guy was? It wasn't Harry.
Yeah, I have no idea who the guy was, and I was like, "Am I missing something?" Because we've seen so many faces being here,
Yeah.
like being in this series. So I was like, "Wait, who is that?" And I think that was just like a good cliffhanger because none of us know who that is, and so I'm kind of interested to see what's going to happen. Like, is she going to die after this awkward stare off? Like, I wasn't sure. Maybe somebody in the comments kind of caught it more than we did. So if you did, definitely let us know, because I didn't know who it was.
Right, and I was just going to say that. Toree and I aren't sure who it is, but do you guys, our listeners and our viewers, thank you so much for watching and following us during this season 1. I know my dad and I have been able to talk about this series. He's also a fan of history. But we want to thank you for following us. If you want to leave a comment or add to the conversation on our YouTube channels, you can leave your comments below each of the episodes. Let us know what you think, what you're thinking about the next season. If you're listening to us on our podcast version, thank you. Give us 5 stars, thumbs up. We love and appreciate you guys and want to keep making all of these shows for you. So with that being said, let's move on to our special segment.
Yes, so you guys know that our special segment is acknowledging unsung heroes. We just kind of talk about people who have helped in the war. And today's unsung hero is actually George Winton, which is a British humanitarian. He was able to rescue children at risk of of Nazi Germany right before World War II. So like a couple of months before, he actually rescued over 600 children. It says on like the eve of World War II, but again, it was just months prior to the peak of World War II. He was a child of German Jewish parents, and he just felt the need to really help this cause. And actually, I don't know if you guys are aware, but I first heard about him because he there was a ceremony and he was front row. I'm sure you can find this video on YouTube because that's where I saw it. But he was front row, and at first he had went to reporters just trying to figure out, if there was any way to get in contact or check on the kids that he had saved. Now that years have gone by, he wanted to kind of see what they were, just make sure they were okay. I mean, he saved over 600 of them, and his wife wrote down everyone's name, birthday, and took a picture of them, so they had this photo book. So they weren't really able to get in contact. He ends up at a ceremony sitting front row, and everyone that was in the crowd were actually the adults that he saved. And I thought, when I first saw the video, I didn't know anything about it. I hadn't heard of him before, but the video really touched me. So I thought it'd be a really good idea to kind of share that for anybody that's interested, listening. You can find the video and the full story on YouTube or on the internet, but it's just a heartwarming story, especially because he saved so many children.
Yeah, I've seen that video before, and yeah, it's really touching. So, well, thank you again, Toree. These special segments have been awesome. All right, let's move on now to our news. Okay, so we've all been leading up to this final moment, the cliffhanger of who's the guy up on the top of the hill, what's going to happen to everybody. I mentioned last week how PBS, their website, they have a lot of great information. They have a recap for each of the episodes. They have podcasts that dive deeper. They have information and history that was going on during each of the episodes. So what's going to happen with season 2? Writer and creator Peter Bowker says that season 2 starts with the Blitz in the northwest of England, and North Africa will be very much the field of battle. So that'll be interesting, especially because Albert, we don't really know his history, but he's French African. I wonder if that's going to bring up any family or friends or something with that. We're going to find out more about the Webster's family history. Nancy will finally have to leave Berlin near the start of the series for crossing a line, and we will also find out more about her. So she hasn't crossed a line before, but now she's going to cross another line. Kasia and Lois will meet, and Lois is trapped in another loveless marriage with Vernon. So those are I think those are some pretty big tells to just tell.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised that we're privy to all of this knowledge before season 2 comes out.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of shook because that kind of answered some of my questions. We saw that Lois accepted the marriage proposal, and I was really hoping that there was I don't know, I thought there was hope there. Maybe this was going to be, she was going to learn to love him. Oh man. Oh, I am looking forward to Kasia and Lois meeting up. I think we're all looking forward to that. That's definitely going to be like a highlight.
Did you think that when Vernon arrived and Lois was like, yes, I'll marry you, it was just a spur of the moment thing?
I did. I wasn't sure. Okay. I knew that she was probably going to tell him no when she first got there. I, without a doubt, was she just wants to be kind and tell him that she doesn't think that's the right choice right now. But I think what changed for her was when there was a possibility that he was in great danger and everybody was waiting around, because honestly, she could have just left and tried to hear some news and just kind of get updates that way and see if he died in battle. But the fact that she sat around, waited for him, and was really concerned on whether he was able to make it out or not, I think that was the change. That was the turning point for her. And I think that's why she accepted the proposal. And like I said, I really thought that maybe that was just her beginning to care for Vernon as much as he cared for her, and that their marriage was going to be full of love, because she didn't really feel like she got that from Harry. But now that I'm hearing that that's not really true, it's just kind of now I really do feel like it was just a rash decision, and maybe she was caught up in the moment and excited that he was alive, and that was the way of her expressing that she cared. But I mean, you don't have to marry someone to tell them that you care. So I guess.
I know, but this is TV. So I know we've kind of already covered some predictions, but let's make it official. And we'll make it official by the producers playing the official predictions graphic.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV.
Let's talk about a few other predictions. I'm going to start. I kind of thought now that we're going to be going into the battle going to England and Africa, that I think we'll maybe learn more about Albert and his family. But I'm only saying that because I'm tying in the only person we know who's got the African background, Albert. So that's one thing. You know what? I think when Lois and Kasia meet, we might love seeing two people go at it and fight because everybody's been fighting over them. It's really not about them. So I hope that when they meet, that that they're smarter than we all think. That they're going to meet. But yeah,
definitely think that Kasia and Lois are going to approach the conversation in a very mature way. I don't think that it's going to kind of be like an exchange of harsh words, but I do think that, to spice it up, I think that when they first meet, it'll probably be the first time that Kasia realizes that Lois had a child by Harry.
Yeah.
And so it'll probably be a little awkward, but I don't think it's going to be like, like I said, a evil exchange of words, but I do think it's going to be very awkward, and that their hatred for Harry is going to strengthen because he always leaves out important details, and that's just going to hurt him in the long run, and he probably will end up alone. Because I mean, we both know that Kasia is only coming back for Yan. She basically already told Harry, like, I don't think this is going to work. We're not the same people, and she didn't really seem interested on trying to make it work. I mean, they got married not really for love, just so she could be safe, and now that's not really either of their goals right now. It doesn't really seem like the marriage has anything to really stand on. So I definitely think in season 2, we're just going to try to see how this love triangle branches out and how they're all going to be able to coexist. And I think all of them being in the same place, we're going to find them being tied to different things to kind of like expand their storyline. But I don't think it's going to be a weird like cat fight between them.
And I think just to extend a crazy prediction, just because to keep the drama going, what if Kasia, when she comes out, assuming she makes it back to England to see Jan, to see her brother, her brothers, that she's going to have to go out with Harry back to Poland together. They're going to have to work together. Just to keep the tension going in the series, that's probably going to happen. So that's my prediction. Toree, any other predictions before we say adios and adieu?
Honestly, they took one of my predictions away because I was definitely going to build off of the Lois and Vernon story, but we know that's not going to really end well. So I don't know. I definitely agree with you. I think we're going to see more of Albert. I think, like you said, we're going to learn a lot more about his story now that we know the point. Sorry, my mouth is like so dry today. But the point of the war that we're at right now, I think we're definitely going to see a lot of his backstory. I'm not really sure if he's going to be released, but I think we'll kind of see how he fits into this dynamic. And honestly, we might see a lot of the background singer and background musician who are also a couple. I think we might learn a lot about them as well. They've been really good supporting cast this first season, and I think season 2 might dive into their storylines a little bit more. They've kind of been playing the back, and I think they deserve, some more camera time. And so I would definitely like to see just more about them, their love story, how they feel about everything, where they fit into this equation, if they're going to stay, if they're going to leave, just kind of what's going to happen to them because they have played a part in the story. So I guess that's my prediction. And I think Rubina is going to start to bond with Lois a lot. And I think that like them being close by the time that Kasia comes back might like drive a line. But I don't know. Like I just kind of see them starting to be on the same team for once.
Right. I know we're dragging out predictions, but you bring up a good point. Lois is kind of hard-nosed like Robina. And so, often we hear in stories in life that